Hey, brother.
Hey, brother.
So, what did you think of Avengers Endgame?
Like the overall giant question. I think it. I mean, for me, it was a bit of a letdown. Not that it wasn't a good movie, but
Yeah,
didn't like the time travel thing to fix the problem. I thought that was kind of a
yeah,
silly
yeah.
decision to make. And I think
Time
it.
travel kind of fixes things up in a nice bow, where like you don't really have to solve the issue. I don't know. Like sometimes it kind of feels like that's a easy way out when you're writing how to solve a problem.
Yeah, and I think it. I think it diminished what Infinity War did.
Yeah, yeah. That was kind of my issue. Is just that Endgame was good. It just wasn't as good as Infinity War. And Infinity War preceding it was a problem because it was such a good movie. Um, but how do you fix it? Do you just get rid of the time travel, or is there like a whole
Yeah,
revamp?
I mean, yeah. You know what I would do.
Yes.
I would just not um I would not bring anyone back. I'd be like, if you're gonna take, I think if you kill a character, you cannot bring them back because
Yeah.
every time you kill someone after that, it there's that feeling in the audience of like, yeah, but you can bring them back, right? And you never get that feeling of like, no, this is final. This is the end of that.
Yeah.
Now we're
It
starting
can kind
something
of
new.
cheapen it. It cheapens the next death, and then
Yes.
like there is also like if you want to kill somebody and have them actually die, then you have to have some kind of exposition where you're explaining like no, but this time is for real because like
Yeah.
you see what happened was, and then they
Mm.
explain why you can't bring them back.
Yeah.
And that's just always like clunky. So yeah, I totally agree with you. It does kind of cheapen the death, and then like any future death, you do have that feeling of like, yeah, but if the actor feels like coming back, then they'll just write some way to bring them back.
Yeah. But what they ended up doing in Endgame was not only cheating death through time travel, but also cheating death through multiple universes. So if you
Yeah,
lose Gamora in your universe, you can just pull one from another universe. Don't worry, there's billions of them.
yeah,
And like you kind of feel like, oh, this like it's a weird thing, but it's like the fact that Gamora is the only Gamora, and if you lose Gamora, you've now lost Gamora. I can't stop saying her name.
Gamora.
There's something like really powerful about that. And when you find out that
Yeah,
like like I don't know, like a box of toothpicks, there's a ton of them,
yeah,
and if you break
yeah,
one toothpick, it doesn't really matter because there's a bunch more toothpicks.
yeah,
Um, yeah, that doesn't really work for me.
yeah. I agree. I think that, if you go that path, though, where you know you're not bringing these people back, then you probably write the end of Infinity War a little bit differently in that there are some people who get snapped that you're not going to have them disappear.
Yeah.
you know, like it was a big blow. For me, I'm a very big Spider Man fan,
Mhm.
and I took it very personally when they snapped Spider Man away, and I was upset about it for days.
Yeah.
They probably wouldn't do that if they knew they weren't going to bring him back.
They wouldn't do it. Who? Yeah.
Yeah,
There's the real question. Let's say Endgame happens and you can't bring anyone back.
yeah,
You're defeating Thanos,
right.
um, but you can't actually bring anyone back. Who do they get rid of and who do they keep? They're not going to get rid of Spider-Man.
Right. Yeah, they're not going to get rid of Spider Man.
Yeah.
Um, gosh.
Black
It's
Panther. They wouldn't have gotten rid of Black Panther.
No, they wouldn't have.
In
They would
hindsight,
have had
you
to
know.
like, yeah.
In
Well,
hindsight,
they would have
because
had to get rid of
yeah,
people who were like more support system rather than like actual core group. Um,
yeah,
just like Happy Hogan and uh, I mean they could get rid of Nick Fury. I think that would still be a big blow.
yeah.
Um, Aunt May.
Nick Fury, Captain
Yeah,
Marvel. She wasn't even there yet.
Captain Marvel. Yes, they don't even know that they're supposed to be sad about it. Um,
Yeah. Well,
who?
you'd have
Yeah.
to. Yeah. Really, really, Endgame I think needs. I think there could be a rewrite for it. I felt like you had an idea on how to rewrite Endgame that was way better. Like if you actually
Yeah.
were having characters disappear,
Oh yeah,
but
yeah. Okay. I
you
was about
and
to
then you
say. I hope I can remember what my
yeah. Do
idea
you remember what I
was.
said? Yeah. Then you're
Yeah.
but you still have to defeat Thanos.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, if when he snaps, because you actually made a point to me about how snapping half of the population all at once would kind of like collapse the infrastructure a little bit. So like
Yeah.
it might not, it would be like a huge blow right off the bat. And he was like, you're like, it would make more sense almost to do like a quarter, and then you know, like maybe like a second snap later, that's like another quarter, so that the infrastructure doesn't collapse. So the idea that I had was that when he snaps, people start to fade, um, and it just kind of happens constantly and gradually over the course of, and it could still be like 5 years. It could, over the
Yeah.
course of the next 5 years, um, it's like it's 5 years later they lost and they're trying to figure out how to beat Thanos, and people have been slowly disappearing constantly ever since. So
Yeah.
now, after 5 years, they're down to like half the population, and people are still going. People are still disappearing. So
Yeah.
it puts this like clock, um, where there's this ticking clock where like they need to defeat Thanos before they lose everybody,
Yeah.
or like before they lose any more.
Yeah.
And that I think would just it would add the urgency that like Endgame needs, without it being like, I don't know, the time travel thing feels a little like, if we screw up we could always just, or like,
Yeah.
we'll just go back and we have plenty of time, because like once we're done that's when we jump back to the present. But like this adds an urgency, and this adds like a ticking clock. They need to defeat Thanos, otherwise like they're going to keep losing people.
Yeah. The thing, and and it forces you to actually choose, like, who are you going to lose. Let's,
Yeah.
maybe like you're like, okay, like these are the characters that we're going to end up losing over the course of this whole Infinity War to Endgame saga, and they're not coming back. And it is final, and every second you can't defeat Thanos, you're losing people that you care about potentially. And
Yeah.
you could always
Yeah.
have like those great moments where someone's like, "Oh my gosh, guys, I know how to defeat Thanos." Like the funniest thing happened to me the other day. What is it? The guy just disappears. Oh,
It's like a running
oh,
gag throughout the
yeah.
movie.
Um, but yeah, that kind of stuff could happen. But I think that's a way better approach to it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it does require. It requires you to make a sacrifice.
Yeah, you the writer and then the
Yes,
audience
to
would
make a
have to make a
sacrifice.
sacrifice, and then it's like, this is it, man.
And
Like that's
they
that's it for the characters.
they weren't willing to do it.
Is there a core member of the Avengers that
Yeah,
gets axed? I mean, I don't know. Personally, I kind of feel like if this is the end of the Infinity Saga,
yeah,
it makes sense for this to be the end for a lot of the Infinity actors. You know, um, so it's like you lose some of these members, and it's like, dude, that's huge that they were lost, but also like they've already kind of finished their arc. Like they're
yeah,
already kind of at the end of their story. So like when I was first thinking about it, I thought it would be a huge blow and they'd never do it. But thinking back, it's like actually it makes a lot of sense for them to have done that. If they had
yeah,
just they get rid of Captain America and he gets snapped away, or if they get rid of Thor, it's like, dude, like that's
yeah.
huge. They got rid of this guy, but like they're kind of at the end of their story anyway.
They kind of got rid of most of them though, right? Because Black Widow.
They got rid of Black Widow.
Black Widow, Captain America, Iron Man,
Yeah.
um, those three. Yeah, we lost those
Yeah.
three. But
Yeah.
yeah, then it would be like the Hulk, Thor, Hawkeye. Who else is
Yeah.
there? In the
I
first like
mean,
Avengers. That's kind of it for the first Avengers,
those
right?
are, yeah, those are kind of the first real Avengers.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you do have to lose. I think you do have to lose them.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Well, then you can have Captain Marvel kind of come in, and if you know, you can decide how you want to like handle that, because it seems like they were trying to set her up for like, here's the next big kind of like superhero that's going to take us into the future.
Yeah. Yeah. She's like, hey guys, you're gonna follow me now. They're like, who are you? We've never met you before.
She was in Room, right? Brie Larson.
Yeah,
She
she
was
was really
so
good in that.
good in that, man.
Yeah,
So good in that.
and that kid, Jacob Tremblay.
Yeah.
Every time I see
Wow.
him in
Great
something,
stuff.
I like, I realize it's him because of how good he is.
Really? I don't know if I've ever seen him in anything else, or if I haven't recognized him. What has he been in?
Have you seen Doctor Sleep?
No.
He does
Is
voice
that it?
acting in Luca. I mean, I
Yeah.
mean, he's been in stuff. There's another movie I saw him in that I can't remember right now. But yeah, every single time I see him in something, I'm like, man, this
Yeah.
kid's good. And then I like look it up. I'm like, oh, it's Jacob Tremblay. Like,
Yeah.
he's really good. Um, but yeah, no, yeah, Brie Larson was very good in Rome.
Yeah. I don't know.
I
How we
don't know
got
if she was right for
to
Captain
there.
Marvel.
Yeah. What? Yeah. What do you think of? What do you think of the whole Doctor Strange 14 like million? There's like 1 in 14 million chance
I
scenario.
mean, it's I don't know how I feel about it.
Yeah.
Because it's such a weird thing to write where it's like there's one scenario in which we win and it requires me to not tell you how we win.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's
Yeah.
like that's not something. I mean, I guess it makes sense, but it's not really ever explained why it makes sense.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I don't know. I like what do you think? I think you told me, but I don't remember. What do you think of the whole 14 million
Yeah. Well,
chances
my
thing?
my initial thought is that Doctor Strange is lying, and that it's not 1 in like 14 million, but they have a much better chance of it. But he has to make Tony Stark think that I'm setting us on the right path.
Yeah,
And then I also think that there has to be enough time between the snap happening and them now deciding to um, try and win it all back again. There has to be enough time, like, between those two things happening. Like, people need to like mature and realize what they've lost,
yeah,
then kind of get over it, and then get to a point where they're like, now I actually think like we have a chance of getting it back, and like let's go get it back. And they're not going to be so aggressive about it like they would have been if they started doing it like a month later, because it's been
yeah,
5 years.
yeah,
And they also feel like there's a degree of relaxation about it too, because it's like, what if this doesn't work? It's like, well, then we just go back to how it is,
yeah,
and
yeah,
we're used to how it is, and that's
yeah.
okay. We
So it's like
tried.
they need to lose to Thanos and have
Yes.
enough time where they're like accepting of the fact
Yes.
that they lost and like they've kind of gotten over the mourning period a little bit
Yes.
so that they can start a new mission rather than
Yeah.
it's like you gotta end World War I before you can start World War II.
Yeah.
you know
Yeah. Same war, by the way.
Perfect analogy. Yeah, same war.
I think that in the future, I think people will see that as the same war. We'll probably still call it
Yeah,
World War I and II, but they'll be like, it was
yeah,
the same war, basically. Um,
yeah,
but yeah, yeah, I think that's it, and I think the rat had to hit the button at a certain
yeah,
point in time. Maybe that was
yeah,
like, maybe there's just like a huge chance the rat's gonna hit the button, But
Yeah.
if it hits it too soon, then Ant-Man comes back too soon, and they try it too soon before everyone's really like fully ready to go at it. And if it hits it too late, everyone's too used to the way things are, and they don't want to risk. Now everyone has something, because Tony has something that he doesn't want to lose. Like, he doesn't
Right.
want to lose his daughter.
Yeah.
But if everyone had that, everyone would be like, no, like, this is the way it is now. They would accept it. But not everyone has that.
Yeah.
Most of them are still kind of like in that, like, kind of like the end tail of the mourning process, where they haven't really moved on
Yeah.
with their lives.
Yeah. So they're like just getting into acceptance.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. The kind of like, as far as the 14 million chances go, it's like
Yeah.
the rat could have let him out at any time,
Yes.
and like the timeline that works is the rat letting him out when everybody's kind of coming into that point of acceptance.
Yes. I think it's that. Yeah. And I think also, I heard this theory online. I think it's a good one. I heard
Yeah.
that. So Thanos's his objective was to wipe out half the population to save the universe, so people don't, like, whatever, use up all the natural resources, yada yada.
Yeah.
And then when Thanos sees that, like, oh, I did this, the
Yeah.
past Thanos sees, like, I've done this and people aren't grateful for it, and it doesn't make things better, but they're still trying to stop me from doing it all these years later.
Yeah.
Now he wants revenge.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
like, so he goes from being this like almost moral character of I'm saving the universe from itself
Yeah.
to now he's an actual bad guy. So in the first movie
Right.
he's a good guy,
Yeah, he's a martyr.
yeah, and in the second movie he's a bad guy because he's like revenge is actually his primary objective, and because of that it allows, like, he doesn't have the will to defeat them because of that.
Yeah. Yeah. Like he was willing to make certain sacrifices in Infinity War that maybe Revenge Thanos wouldn't be willing to make.
Yes.
It's like yeah. When
It's
your
kind of like,
priorities change like that.
yeah, it's like doing something for yourself versus doing something for someone like you care about.
Something
Like,
bigger than yourself.
Yeah, you're probably gonna push a little bit harder if it's for someone you care about than if it's just like, for your own self gratification.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. There is a theory I saw. Did you ever watch The Eternals?
Yes.
Okay, so I saw a theory after the Eternals happened, um, that was why Thanos wanted to snap half of the population away, was
Yeah.
because these planets that have these like Eternals inside of them, they're able to crash out of the Earth because they're sucking the life force of the Earth's population,
Yeah.
and their theory was that that's what happened to Thanos' home planet. So he couldn't snap twice as many resources and solve the problem because then they still would have come out of the planet and killed everybody. So
Yeah.
he had to snap half the population away so that it couldn't come out of the planet.
Yeah.
I really like that. I thought that was pretty
Yeah,
good.
it's a good theory. Why can't he snap the Eternals away?
Ooh, that's a good point. I don't know.
Are they too powerful?
Let's say yes.
Yeah, they're outside of the. Yeah, they would. Yeah.
Let's say yeah, probably.
Here's my complaint.
Yes.
I don't think you should be able to snap the stones away. I think the stones are just something that exist, and and it doesn't make any sense to me that, like, you could just snap them out of existence.
I agree with that. I think it is. It's kind of. It's another thing where I feel like it's an easy way out.
Yeah.
Where like, well, why don't they just grab the stones back? Well, you could just get rid of them. I was like, okay.
Yeah.
Like, I'd rather like try and come up with a more complicated reason for why they can't get to the stones or why they can't find them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm not really sure what that entails. I'm not really sure Like, how would you solve that issue where it's like, okay, the Infinity Stones still exist, but why can't we get to them? Is it just that Thanos is still guarding them and he's still like crazy strong?
Yeah, yeah. What do you do? What do you do once Thanos has the gauntlet? I mean, I guess it looks kind of like how Infinity War looked, where they're just trying to stop him from using it.
Yeah,
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 but yeah, yeah. I don't know. It's an interesting, it's an interesting thing. I think it's a good case study in you have to be careful with your lore because you
yeah,
can kind of diminish everything that's happened by
yeah, yeah,
making a decision where like you can you lose somebody and like you feel this great grief over losing all these characters, but then we
yeah.
brought them all back. The next movie, don't worry about it. It's okay.
Yeah, like it can be a really good kind of writing exercise to paint yourself into a corner and then
Yeah,
to try and figure out like how do I get out of this corner. Um, but uh, if you use the established lore, so it's
yeah,
like you have to use what you've already established and
yes,
try and use that to solve the problem rather than creating new lore in order to solve your problem.
yeah. Yeah, what do? Do you make a list of things you can't do? Like you paint yourself into a corner and it's not a dream. And it's not
Yeah,
virtual reality, and you can't
right.
time travel, and you can't go into an alternate universe, and
Yeah,
you can't choose some cheap way out. That when someone first did it, it was inventive and creative and brilliant. That
yeah,
someone like was like, I'm gonna solve this problem through time travel.
yeah.
That's what the time machine is. The
Right.
book, The
Yeah,
Time Machine, you know. Uh, but after somebody does it, and you're now using that thing,
yeah,
it's like you're using a cheap trick now
yeah.
to solve a
Yeah,
problem rather than actually solving the problem.
yeah, yeah. Like they're using it as a I don't know. It's just they just conjure a plot device. It's they're using it as a Deus ex machina, um, rather than like this is a part of the universe. This is a part of the lore. Like even in Doctor Strange, when he uses the Time Stone, um, like the whole point of don't use the Time Stone is there's a lot of like really messed up stuff that can happen because of it,
Yeah,
and then he ends up using it against a being that lives outside of time, and so
yeah,
getting that guy stuck in a time loop is how he ends up winning because the guy is like realizes he's in a time loop and wants to get out of it.
yeah,
So like yeah, it is kind of a Deus Ex Machina when you use it in Endgame, where it's like, no, we just go back in time and we do it the same way they do in Back to the Future, and they even say that in the movie.
yeah,
I was
yeah,
like, that's not even how you use time travel in your own universe. Like, that's not how Doctor Strange used it. Like, he was inventive with it.
yeah. I know.
I don't know.
What an interesting concept too. That if there's a being that lives outside of time, the most painful thing you can do to that being is put it into time, like we live.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
what a painful experience this is that we don't even realize how painful it is that we're just kind of going through time.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I like that.
yeah, fun stuff. But yeah, I like your
Oh,
idea though. The snap is a slow, gradual thing that happens that they have to actually now defeat Thanos to stop the snap from continuing
yeah,
and potentially losing people. Because yeah, like if he snaps away half the population, you're gonna lose another half the population just to like the fact that the water's not gonna be working anymore and no
yeah,
one's picking up garbage and like
yeah,
all the
yeah,
whole infrastructure collapses. Bridges are going to be collapsing, buildings are going to be falling over, like
yeah,
all the people that were like maintaining that stuff, now you got rid of half of them. Half the
yeah,
people can't maintain a whole infrastructure, so yeah, you really
yeah,
will lose like I think you lose a lot more than just half the people if you end up snapping half the people away.
yeah, yeah. And the gradual thing kind of also adds, like, you can add some interesting ebbs and flows into that
Yeah,
final fight with Thanos.
yeah,
Like somebody trying to do a killing blow, like starts fading in the middle
yeah,
of it, and they
yeah.
miss Thanos, and they just get faded out. It's
Ooh,
like, oh no,
gas, yeah.
like that was rough.
Yeah, that
A
would be
kid's
rough.
playing catch with his dad, throws the ball, his dad fades away.
Yeah, and then the ball goes through the dad and like hits his little brother in the head.
I'll be right back. I'm just getting some cigarettes. Fades away.
He never came back. Yeah,
Yeah.
that would be terrifying too. You could have a whole storyline of that too, of how terrifying it is to have somebody even go to the grocery store because people
Yeah.
don't return from the grocery store because they
Yeah.
potentially fade, and now you don't know what happened to them. Did they
Yeah.
fade? Did they just leave? Did they, you know? And
Yeah.
now anyone that you haven't seen for a while, you're like, I was trying to contact you. I thought you faded,
Yeah.
you know? And they're like, no,
Yeah.
I just was dealing with this thing over here. And there's all this like
Just
tension, you know?
a scorned lover. It's like,
Yeah.
like, I heard from your friend that you got snapped.
Yeah.
You faded away.
Yeah.
He's like,
Yeah.
oh, man. So I
Yeah,
just
you
wanted
could.
to get away from you.
And then you can show Captain America and his like self-help group, you know, and they're like
Mm.
having the conversation, and one of the people there just fades, and everyone just is like they're used
Yeah.
to it. It's painful, but they're
Yeah.
used to it.
Just a bunch of empty chairs.
Yeah, by the end of it, just ashes on all
Yeah.
the chairs. Captain America's all, you know. But yeah, but like you could show that type of stuff where you just feel
Yeah.
like that, and you can, as the audience, you're gonna feel that sense of, oh my gosh, this is just a normal thing that's been happening for 5 years,
Yeah.
and they're just used to like, yeah, if you're in a room of 10 people, sometimes one of them disappears,
Yep.
and you're like, okay, oh wait, guys,
Oh,
like
man.
you know, Billy's disappearing, guys. Billy's like,
Yeah.
bye guys,
Bye,
bye guys, I
guys.
love you. Happy birthday, Margaret.
Happy.
Like and the last thing he said
He's
was,
holding the
"Happy
cake.
birthday, Margaret."
Oh.
Ah, you're doing Naruto right there, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Um. Yeah. So I do think there definitely was a better choice direction to go in,
Yeah.
but it would have required them to sacrifice potentially some of their money-making heroes, and
Yeah.
they're not going to do that.
Yeah. I don't know, man. I think that you got to do that. You gotta sacrifice that stuff. You know.
Yeah.
Just because it makes it so much better. Like there's some movies that you think back to them, the reason why they're special is because there's nothing else like them, you know. And there's some movies that you'll throw on just because like you're in the mood to watch it,
Yeah.
and that is kind of something that I hadn't really considered before, but it is something that is maybe a little bit of a problem with the Marvel universe is if I'm in the mood to watch a Marvel movie, I don't know what to watch. But if I'm in the
Yeah.
mood to watch Tommy Boy, I just throw on Tommy Boy. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Like yeah, if you're in the mood to watch a Chris Farley movie, you'll throw on Tommy Boy.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. Or an Adam Sandler movie, you're gonna probably pick like Happy Gilmore or Billy Madison or The Wedding
Yeah.
Singer. You kind of know.
Right.
Yeah. And they all feel a little bit different too, so you know where to go. But yeah, I kind of agree with you. I think for me though, I think if I want to watch a Marvel movie, I usually go with whatever the last great one was because it usually
Yeah.
tops the other ones. But Guardians of the Galaxy, the first one,
Yeah.
I think is still one of the best Marvel movies, and I think Infinity War, I think is still one of the best Marvel movies.
Yeah. Yeah. I do think Infinity War is the best one.
Other than that, I don't really.
Yeah. Well, it's
I think-
yeah. Like I don't know. Like I've never. If I'm in the mood to watch a Marvel movie, then I'm like never going to pick the first Captain America because like
Yeah.
I want to watch a movie that feels like that. It's like if I want to watch a movie that feels like that, I'll probably watch Winter Soldier instead. You know.
Yes. Yeah. Agreed.
So yeah, it does. It kind of like dilutes the rest of the films, just by the fact I don't know. It's like all of them have kind of that same feel, which I guess is sort of a like Joss Whedon mixed with James Gunn feel, which is kind of how all the films feel now. Like every
Yeah.
new film that comes out feels like a mix between like this was Joss Whedon style, this was James Gunn style, and like that's what Marvel is. Um, but yeah, I don't know. It's just there's something kind of cool about like when the Marvel universe started, the movies did feel different, and some of them were hits and some of them were misses.
Yeah.
But it was like that first Iron Man was so good, and then like Captain America and the Incredible Hulk were like way different from Iron Man and way different from each other.
Yeah.
Uh, I don't know. I mean, like it's probably they just went with the formula that worked, but you know, it's making things distinct like that, I think, can be more valuable in the long run. You know?
Yeah. I think Yeah. I think a really good example is Tim Burton's Batman and
Joel
and
Schumacher's Batman.
Superman with Christopher Reeves.
Okay. Yeah.
Who was that? Richard
Yeah.
Donner. Um,
Yes.
so like same universe, DC, but
Yeah.
very different feeling movies, and they
Yeah.
both feel like that felt like Batman to me, and that felt like Superman to me, and that's what Batman
Yeah.
felt like for a long time. That's like that was Batman. That was the gold standard for Batman, and that was the gold standard for Superman for a long time.
Yeah, yeah. Well, even like the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movies, like all three of them feel like their respective villains.
Yeah.
Where like the first movie feels like a Green Goblin movie, you know,
Yes.
and like it's it's kind of what makes it feel like such a great Spider-Man movie. And I think why Spider-Man 3 felt so all over the place is the first half felt like a Sandman movie, and the second half felt like a Venom movie.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, like that pulled you in a way that like the other movies didn't really. Where it's like let's have it rooted in reality and let's have it grungy and like let's have it, you know. And it's
Yeah.
like that's not Spider-Man, you know.
Yeah. Why is that? Just because um, there's not directors who are stylistic anymore. In the
I
same way
think
that Zack Snyder is at least stylistic. The
yeah,
issue Zack Snyder has though is that everyone's copied his style, right?
yeah, that's yeah. I think that you're right. Um, it is kind of that like there's this attempt to try and make things as realistic as possible and as rooted in reality as possible,
Yeah.
and that's fine and it's impressive when they're able to pull it off. But like the best movies in history, or the best movies from the '90s, or like the best actors of all time,
Yeah.
um, it did not feel like reality. It did not feel like, well, this is just how people talk. Like nobody talks like Jack Nicholson.
Yeah.
He wasn't trying to act like this is how people act. He was putting on a performance, and he was putting on a performance that would stick in your head. Where 20 years later, you're like, you're thinking about something he did. Whereas like 20 years from now, I'm not really going to think about anything that, you know, I'm not going to be thinking about a performance that some of the modern day actors are giving, because it's like, yeah, you're doing a real good job of acting like my buddy, but like
Yeah.
also my buddy acts like that.
Yeah.
And you're not showing me anything I haven't seen before. Like it's not something that's going to stick with me and kind of like just be a part of my life and a part of the culture. So I think that's part of it. I think that directors are trying to have things so rooted in reality because it's impressive when they pull it off, that they're not stylizing anything and they're not creating anything that sticks with you and becomes a part of your like personal zeitgeist and a part of like the culture. Does that make sense?
Yeah. It does. I think. Yeah. You know, I I was noticing because when I was a kid, people would do impressions,
Yeah.
and they would do Barney Fife, and they would do Rear Window. Sorry, if I'm losing
Jimmy
people's names,
Stewart.
I'm just gonna say their movie. And they do Scent of a Woman. They do Al Pacino, and like
Yeah.
they do De
Yeah.
Niro, and they would Jack Nicholson, Christopher Walken.
Christopher
So
Walken.
So guys that like I was growing up watching, who were kind of like the big movie stars, those were guys that you
Yeah.
could do impersonations of. And now, if you
Yeah.
watch someone doing impersonations, they're doing Barney Fife and Jimmy Stewart
Jackets.
and
Yeah.
Christopher Walken and Al Pacino. I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
you're still doing impressions of Jack Nicholson
Yeah.
to people today who don't even know who Jack Nicholson is.
Right. Right.
Like, because you can't do an impersonation of uh, Chris Evans.
Yeah.
There
Channing
is
Tatum.
nothing. Yeah, Channing Tatum. You can't really do impersonations of him. Seth Rogen, maybe,
Yeah.
is the most because of the laugh.
Right.
You know, like Jerry
Yeah.
Seinfeld had kind of a way of talking that was different and felt unique,
Yeah. Yeah.
and they don't really have that anymore.
Yeah. I think that like people have an attitude of that being like antiquated and like yeah we've gotten past that and now it's like like we're doing it in this way that's more rooted in reality and they talk about that like it's better,
Mhm.
but I don't think it is. I think that like what we liked about a performance was that they were performing and they were good at it.
Yeah,
And there's a certain sense of like um, suspension of disbelief that you want when you're watching a movie. And like Alfred Hitchcock used to talk about it, where he said like he doesn't put people doing normal everyday things on screen
yeah,
because like if there's this woman who is a housewife and she's washing dishes every night and then like on Friday night she goes to a movie with her husband and then she looks up on the screen and there's a woman washing dishes.
yeah,
It's like what did she go out for? What did she
yeah,
spend her money on? And that's kind of what I think the problem is. And they actually were talking about this when they started doing color film. They were doing Technicolor instead of like black and white.
mhm,
That was kind of what the audience was not sure of. Is like I don't know if color's gonna stick. Like it might be kind of more of a fad because when I go and watch a movie, I want to just kind of watch a story. Like I don't want it to feel like everyday life. I want to be entertained.
yeah,
So like that was the concern. Was just like it wasn't. I don't know. Like people talk about it like it was people didn't get it or didn't understand, and it's like no,
yeah,
people were pretty smart. They understood. They just kind of felt like, well, this is a story. This is a something I'm watching to be entertained. I want that suspension of disbelief so that I can enjoy it.
yeah,
And it might be a little bit less enjoyable to watch a mafioso, gun down a family with a Tommy gun if it's in live color and there's blood all over the place. And it's like that's not
yeah,
enjoyable to watch. Like it's more like fun and fantastical when there's separation.
yeah. I think everyone. Yeah, I think what they wanted then is the same thing we want now, which is like it's an escape,
Yeah,
and you're using this medium to evoke like an emotion in me and to take me on a journey.
yeah,
And when you're not doing that, it's not
yeah,
good. So it doesn't matter
yeah,
how realistic or gritty or grungy or violent it is if it's not taking me on a journey or making me feel like I've accomplished something by the end of it,
yeah, yeah,
it's not a good thing. And yeah, Tarantino actually does a really good job of that,
yeah,
of having
yeah,
that mix of like violence and complete. He does things in such a like weird, mundane way. Like it's a very, I don't know, when I like when you're watching like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, the pacing that everyone is moving at is very slow
yeah,
compared to the pace of more modern movies. And
yeah,
everyone
yeah,
really liked Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. And it's like, yeah, because like there's a lot of really memorable scenes in it
yeah,
because he takes his time in
yeah,
developing the scenes and in building the tension. And in like I'm always thinking of that scene where Brad Pitt's at the ranch and there's just all those weird women just standing there like looking at him, and he's
yeah,
going up there
yeah,
and he's talking to the girl behind the like screen
yeah,
and he's just like, well, I'm coming in and this
yeah,
ain't stopping me. And it's not.
right.
And it's like I don't even know how much like time they're on like either side of this thing, but there's like they
It's a
take their
long
time.
time. Yeah.
in
Yeah.
just having it where like there's a build up to him going to this, going getting there,
Yeah.
being there, and then now getting to the other side, because you're like, what the heck am I going to see once he gets into this thing, and
Yeah.
what the heck is going to happen to him once he
Yeah.
boxes himself into this house, and how the
Yeah.
heck is he going to get out of there when his car is all the way across the thing, and like you're
Yeah.
not even thinking of this stuff, but you're thinking of it because we're
Yeah.
animals and we don't like being trapped in a corner, and Brad Pitt's being trapped in a corner.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know,
He's forced. Tarantino is forcing you to feel suspense.
mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah,
and it is sort of a problem with like there's a modernization in film that is like, well, like this is what the kids like now, and this is what, and I don't agree with it. I think that it's bullcrap. I think that if you show a teenager from today Dumb and Dumber,
yes,
they're gonna like Dumb and Dumber just as much as teenagers in the '90s did.
yes,
And I think that a lot of like modern day marketing experts
mm-hmm.
feel like, well, the people who like Dumb and Dumber were the people who were teenagers in the '90s, and now they're not teenagers anymore. And it's like, no, like like show Dumb and Dumber to modern day teenagers, they're still gonna like it.
Yeah,
Um, People like being told good stories. People like being entertained. I think that they started quick pace editing to try and keep up with like the new demographic, and it's like people are still people. You
yeah,
don't need to do that. Like people still like watching good stories. I think it's why people started moving to television. Um, it's because like Breaking Bad was telling a better story than anything that you could see in a movie, and like this
yeah,
is why people were talking about Breaking Bad. It's why people were talking about Game of Thrones. People were like kind of hungry for a good story. And I mean, I think I always say it about cinematography too, like because anybody who's in that realm will tell you that the most important thing is to like have that absolute highest quality as far as um, like sound and video. And Clerks is an example that I use where it's like, no, like I'd rather watch Clerks than Suicide Squad, because it's a better movie and it has worse cinematography and it has worse sound quality, but it tells a better story. Um, and it's like I could still watch Buffy the Vampire Slayer and really enjoy it, even though it doesn't have the best effects, because it tells a better story than some of the modern day stuff that has really, really good effects and they didn't
yeah.
hire a writer. You know what I mean?
You're talking about the TV show, not the Buffy the Vampire Slayer movie, I'm assuming.
Correct.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I think if I think back to being a kid, one of the hardest things to deal with was being bored. And
Yeah.
when when I was a kid, I was bored a lot as a
Right.
kid.
Yeah.
And getting over when you become an adult,
Yes.
getting over being bored is, I think, one of the more important things you can do.
Yeah.
Get over not wanting to be bored as
Yeah.
fast as you can when you become an adult. Stop thinking it's a bad thing. Being bored
Yeah.
is like the best thing in the world, because
Yeah.
then this thing starts entertaining itself, and that's where all of our like inventions and creativity come from. It's from
Yeah.
bored people
Yeah.
who are doing something because they're bored
We are an
rather than like,
innovative species.
yeah. But I think being bored is going kind of like they're trying to make being bored go bye-bye by just having so much content and so many different, you can just watch, if you like seeing planes take off, you can go on TikTok or YouTube or wherever and watch planes take off
For like
for the
5 hours.
rest of your life. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like as much
Yeah.
planes taking off and landing as you can handle,
Yeah.
non-stop 24 hours. Like
Yeah.
there's just, it's out there. That's the whole thing. And
Yeah.
so it has it's good and it's good and it's bad, but it also means that like you can't, if you're making your movies and you're editing it at the pace of a music video.
Yeah.
um
I feel like it's an insult to audiences because it operates under the assumption that people can't think, they don't want to think,
Yeah.
They can't have an attention span, and they don't want to sit through it. And it's like, okay, I maybe that's true to a point. Maybe that's true for some people, but like people are still people, and we still like being told stories, and we still
Yeah.
like seek out things that are entertaining on the internet because we want to be entertained. Um, I think that people want to be challenged. They want to think, and so like telling a good story that has nuance in it. Um, there's this thing that I kind of throw in there. There's this underlying theme, and can you catch it? Can you see it? Is like like people want that. People see it. People feel like you know like good about it when they catch it. Um, I don't think that people want to just be put into a position where they don't have to think. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I don't know.
I
Like I
think
could
it's
drink soda every day for the rest of my life. I'm gonna feel like crap afterward. It's like, or I could
yeah.
drink water
Have we
and
yeah
like feel a lot better in the long term.
have people been trained not to think? Because
I think that the
I mean,
people that have been trained not to think are the same people that didn't care to think in the 90s. The same people that like didn't really
yeah,
bother to challenge themselves. I mean, for the most part, we're an adaptable species. We're an innovative species. We want to think. We want to learn.
yeah,
And a new invention isn't going to change that. There are older generations that I think fall into habits from new inventions, but newer generations, I think, grow up with this and see it more as a tool rather than an escape. And it's like, well, how can I use this in order to innovate? How can I use this in order to challenge myself? That's what I think anyway. I don't know.
yeah,
It's hard to kind of pinpoint.
yeah, yeah. We humans are interesting.
Yeah,
We're an
yeah,
interesting. Yeah, we're kind of this weird. We're a weird balance of ambition and laziness that is
yes,
difficult to put your finger on. Like
yeah, yeah,
we're wildly lazy,
yeah,
and we're also extremely ambitious at the same time.
yeah, yeah. I mean, as far as storytelling goes, like I don't think that people wanting to watch 80s movies or movies that feel like 80s, I don't necessarily
Yeah,
think it's a nostalgia factor so much as it is they're looking for a good story and they can't find one, so they're having to go back. I was
yeah.
like, all right, maybe we should like hire writers again, people who know
Yeah.
how to tell good stories. Maybe it won't be rooted in reality, but it'll be more entertaining, and that's kind of what people are looking for.
I will say this in defense of over fast, crazy editing. Man on Fire is a ridiculously edited movie. Like,
Yeah,
it is so over edited and
yeah,
cut together,
yeah,
and but it works. It's actually it does what it's supposed to do. It's supposed to make you feel a certain way,
yeah,
and it's supposed to it's like they'll edit it in a way to almost symbolize what it feels like when you're drunk, then what it feels like when you're mourning a loss, then what it
yeah,
feels like when you're now this machine of vengeance, this
yeah,
unstoppable force.
yeah,
It's the editing style is the same, but it's done in a way to like now this is more representing that
yeah,
loop, that OCD loop of being stuck as a drunkard, and that OCD
yeah,
loop of being stuck as someone in mourning who just lost your whole purpose in life, and now that
yeah,
OCD loop of a machine, a killing machine,
yeah,
seeking vengeance for the people that have wronged you,
yeah. You
and
used
it's
a good
like
word there. It's purpose. There's
yes,
purpose behind why it was shooting like that, why it was edited like that. It wasn't just imitating what it thought the current fad was. Like,
yes. Do we want to get into that? Digital versus film?
yes,
Okay. All right.
digital versus film. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Because
Okay. Yeah.
I think that is I think that's the difference between physical film,
Yeah.
which you can use up,
Yeah.
which costs money.
Yep.
It's a finite resource, and
Right.
digital, which is not, basically.
Yeah. Like you mess up, you just do it again.
Yeah,
Doesn't cost you anything.
and I think the huge difference is that you have to plan ahead when you're shooting on film. Otherwise, it's
Yeah.
going to cost way more. It's going to take way more time, and you might run out of the stuff that you're trying to use.
Yeah.
As opposed to digital, where you can be like, okay, let's do the shot. Okay, let's do it up close now. Okay, let's do it far. All right, now I'm going to
Yeah.
take, and it's like, what shot are you trying to get? What
Yeah.
emotion are you trying to evoke from this scene? Because it's only
Yeah.
you. If you're trying to evoke an emotion from a scene, when you plan ahead, there's only one shot to do it in, maybe two,
Yeah.
where you're like, okay, here's my shot, and then here's kind of my safety shot that in case the way it flows isn't the way like I think it's gonna flow. But
Yeah.
that's not how they're doing it, right? They're just filming like 15 different cameras from 15 different angles.
Yeah. It's
Then
it's called coverage. They're trying to get coverage, and then like a
Yes.
lot of times they'll just figure it out in the editing room. So it's like let's shoot from here, let's shoot from there, let's shoot from there, let's shoot from there. And yeah, like there isn't a lot of purpose behind where they're putting the camera.
Yeah.
Yeah, I go back and forth on whether or not I agree with you on this point, and I think I'm agreeing with you on this point.
Okay.
And a good
Unbelievable.
example, I know, a good a good example is Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yes.
Because I mean not just with digital versus film, but also like CGI. I mean like let's include all of it. So Raiders of the Lost Ark, Steven Spielberg needed to stay within a budget. And what he says about that film is that that film taught him how to like a shot, not love a shot. Because like he just needed to get the shot and he couldn't just do it over and over and over again until he found that perfect one that he loved because it cost too much money. So it like it had to just kind of be like, okay, that's good enough. Like let's move on. And along those same lines, Harrison Ford's actually doing all this stuff, and they're actually blowing stuff up. And what people like watching, and why people still like watching Raiders of the Lost Ark, isn't necessarily because it has such great effects, but rather because it's impressive what they did, and it's impressive what they caught on camera, and people like to be impressed by what other people do.
Yeah.
If you look at a different Spielberg movie, I don't know, Bridge of Spies. And there's like this plane crash scene, and it's like 98% CGI.
Yeah.
It's like that was a okay scene. It didn't really stick with me. I'm not really thinking about it later, and it's because it wasn't impressive. They didn't actually capture anything, and like if they mess up, then it's like, oh, we'll just do it again because it doesn't cost us anything, and we'll fix it in post, and we'll get like an animator to put CGI in there, and it's like, okay, like what was cool about CGI having good effects when it first came out was that it was impressive. Like, oh wow, I didn't know they could come up with something that looked that good. But now it's not impressive anymore. Like, yeah, we've already seen that. Like, what are you doing that is impressing me? Nothing. I'm gonna go watch Raiders of the Lost Ark again because that was a heck of a lot more impressive to watch. Like, look at what they did. Look at what they pulled off. And he had to just kind of do it with those few takes so that he didn't go over budget.
Yeah. I think, another issue, one of the issues I have with CGI is that it's typically not a good shot. So, like, when you watch, like, another Spielberg film, War Horse, there's a scene where the horse is just running through, like, a battlefield, and it's following it through a battlefield. And it's CGI.
Right.
And it's not a good shot.
Yeah.
It just isn't. It's not. It's like they can't. It's impossible to do a good shot that's a CGI shot.
Yeah.
Unless it's a CGI movie, then you can do a good shot, because that's the movie. Like Up.
Yeah.
You can do a good shot in Up because it's a CGI movie. But to do a good shot, you have to have somebody behind the camera.
Yeah.
Like, for whatever reason. Then it's going to probably get, cut somewhere. But, like, it's just one of those things where, like, like, there's a real camera here. And if I hit...
Yeah.
If I tap it, if I sneeze, you'll see the shake of the camera.
Yeah.
From the vibration. Yeah. And there's something... You can't do that.
Yeah.
So... Yeah, I do... I
kind
think
of to further that point, like, you don't need that perfection.
Yes.
In Good Will Hunting, there's a scene where Robin Williams...
Starring Matt Damon.
Yes. Where Robin Williams is talking to Matt Damon, and he starts improvising this line about how his wife used to fart in her sleep.
Yeah.
And Matt Damon starts cracking up, and you see the camera shake. And it's because the cameraman's laughing.
Yeah.
And that take is in there. That take is in the movie. Like, you don't need perfection. You don't need, like, you need something that feels real. You need something that's impressive. People are smart. You have to kind of go back to the roots of film. Like, one of the first filmmakers ever was George Méliès. He was a magician by trade. He saw this film thing and he's like, I could do some magic tricks on camera and people are going to feel like, wait, how did he do that? It's not going to look real. And that's not what's going to be going through their heads. They're not going to be thinking like, oh, that looks fake. They're going to be thinking like, I know that's fake, but how? How did he do it? And that's kind of the difference between War Horse, where there's this CGI horse and everybody watching it is like, that's not impressive because I know how they did it. And it's not like they were being innovative. And then like the fog of war in the Battle of the Bastards in Game of Thrones, where they have this one long shot of Jon Snow just like killing a bunch of people and like horses coming and everything. And it's like, I know that they used probably CGI. I know that they probably used green screen, but like I don't know how they made it look like that. And it's really impressive that they did that, and I'm not sure how they did it.
Yeah.
It's like that still kind of speaks to people, It's not about looking real. It doesn't matter if it looks real.
Yeah.
What matters is if it's impressive that they did it.
Yes. But now if they end up doing that, where you've seen it in like 100 films.
Yeah.
You're going to be annoyed with it when you see it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
It's still really cool for me to watch Contact, and there's the scene where the little girl's running up the hall, and then like opens the mirror, and the camera was like inside the mirror, and it's like, wait, what? And it like still blows my mind, and I've seen like behind the scenes of how they did it, and I still don't know how they did. Like I don't really remember, but like it starts in the hall and follows the little girl up the hall, and then she reaches for the mirror, and it's a mirror. And I'm like, huh?
Yeah, that's the beginning of the movie. The movie starts that way, right?
I think so.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, I'll have to watch that again. But yeah, that is a cool thing though about when they actually had to do it practically.
Yeah.
There still is scenes in movies, black and white movies,
that
people do not know how they pulled it off.
Right.
Because they're like, this is how you would have done it 10 years later when they had this technology that they didn't have then.
Yeah.
So how did they actually do this?
Yeah.
And it's cool to see that like there is that, there is the wait, what, how did that happen? Yeah.
Yeah. You go to a magic show and a dove flies out of his jacket.
Yeah.
It's not impressive because you think that he actually made a dove come out of nowhere. It's impressive because you have no clue where the dove came from. You're thinking of Arrested Development, aren't you?
Yeah, but where did the lighter fluid come from? I was thinking like you were talking about a magician that like you could obviously see he's got a dove in his jacket.
Yeah, okay, well that's a good example too. That's a good example too. Not quite as impressive.
How difficult was it for me to do this magic show with a dove in my jacket the whole time?
Yeah.
That's the thing. No, magicians don't ever talk about, which is something that Prestige talked about, which was really cool. Was that the
Yeah.
old guy? There's that old man who's got the like giant, like 150-pound fish
Fishbowl.
bowl,
Yeah.
and it's in between his legs, and he's like
Yeah.
he carries it in between his legs all the time. That's the
Yeah.
trick. That's why he
Yeah.
acts like a feeble old man, is because he's carrying 150 pounds. But
Yeah.
he's actually strong as a horse, you know?
Yeah.
And he
Yeah.
just pretends to be old and feeble so that you wouldn't ever think that, like, he could carry this thing. He's just making
Yeah.
it appear. But that's the
Yeah.
thing I feel like they don't, like, even magicians don't really talk about. Like, how difficult is it to have, like, 15 animals stashed away somewhere on your body?
They're all biting him.
Yeah. Rabbits.
Ta-da!
Rabid Monty Python rabbits biting at your side. But yeah, like how hard is it to be carrying all these things on you
Yeah.
without showing that you're carrying these things on you? Because they have to be on your body. I guess
Yeah.
that when the assistants are coming over and changing your clothes and stuff, that's what they're doing probably. You know, stuffing a
Yeah.
rabbit down the back of the guy's pants. You know, while the audience doesn't see. The assistant all yeah. Yeah.
What's that in your shirt? Don't worry about it. He's like, that's for the finale. That's at the end of the show. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. Yeah, but in Arrested Development, he's got the dead dove.
Yeah, the dead dove fight. Yeah.
Dove's dead by the time he gets to it.
Yeah, but I mean that is it does go to your point where it's like when you when you when you have to make something with rules, with finite resources, you're forced to be innovative, you're forced to be creative. And if you do it in a way that's innovative and creative, then the audience is impressed by it. And they feel like, how did you do that? And yeah, you do kind of lose that a little bit when it's like, well, let's just get 15 different angles and edit it later and we have the coverage and that's good enough. Or, we'll just do it CGI and it's like, we'll hire some college kid who's just as good as any professional, pay him like $50 an hour, and he'll be done in like 10 hours. It's not impressive anymore. So it's like, do something that's impressive. I think it's why people still like practical effects, and it's still kind of like a cool gimmick when it's like, we did this movie and it's practical effects. And it's like, oh, cool. I want to see like how good they were able to make it.
Yeah.
Like I'd rather watch The Thing than a modern day like, wow, that looks really cool, but also it's a cartoon.
Yeah. Yeah, is it important that that we don't know how to do something, and then somebody has to then go and figure out, how do I do it, and what comes out of it is something innovative and creative and awesome. And when we already have the solution to the problem, it's not fun anymore.
Yeah. I think it makes a difference. I think it makes a big difference. It's the you go and watch a magic show and you already know how all the tricks are done.
Yeah.
Then like the magician that does the tricks that everyone knows how to do is playing birthday parties. Yeah. But like David Copperfield, who will make a car float over your head in the audience and then make it disappear over your head in the audience.
Yeah.
Like he's playing Vegas. You know what I mean?
Car.
I know. How did he do it?
Wow.
He made all those audience members disappear.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, that's I think the same thing. It's the same thing with a filmmaker, and I don't think that the money men have quite caught that yet, because like they're not spending a lot of money on hiring creatives. They're spending a lot more money on, let's get the CGI looking as realistic as possible. And it's like, all right, but that's not impressive anymore. Like, it just kind of looks the way that it looks. Like Tron was cool when it came out because like I'd never seen anything that looks like that before. How did they do that? And it's not because it looked good. it looked the same way back then as it does now, you know. But it was like,
Yeah.
how did they do that? What is that? Like I've never seen that before.
Yeah, they used to. Yeah, like we used to get stuff like Sin City and the 300 and
Yeah,
Tron, and it was
yeah,
like now we're taking you into a whole nother world,
yeah,
and we're making it look really cool because we have CGI that
yeah,
can produce the entire world.
yeah,
I don't want to see CGI in Bridge of Spies
yeah.
or in
Right,
Warhorse. I don't want to see it.
right.
I'd rather not see it. If it is there, I'd rather not know it's there at all. You know.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, but yeah, like in my real life movies, I want to see real life
Real life.
stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah, and I want you to figure out how to do it.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. Like, I mean, not to keep going way back in time, but Douglas Fairbanks in the 1920s. It's like people wanted to see this guy on screen because he's doing stuff that nobody else can do. You know,
Douglas Fairbanks, a dapper fella.
he is a dapper fella, but you
What
know,
is okay? Who is Douglas Fairbanks? First of all, I know
well, he
who.
was
I probably know who is he?
he's an action star. He was like Zorro and the Black
Robin Hood.
Pirate. No,
That's
that was Errol Flynn.
Errol Flynn. Okay.
He was before Errol Flynn.
Is he the one
he
that
was
does the knife in the thing?
yeah,
Slides
Knife in
down
the Sail.
Okay.
And he's
I know who
yeah,
you mean,
but he did Zorro,
yeah.
and he's like he's like jumping over like donkeys, like jumping
Yeah,
up like
he
onto
was
a
doing
roof
like
like a second story
parkour.
roof. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
and he's doing it in a way that looks um, effortless,
Yeah.
and he's doing stuff that people can't do,
Yeah.
and that's why he was on camera. Like you can get some other guy, and he's like running, and you know he like jumps and almost
Yeah.
makes it, and it's like all right, you know, but that's not impressive. Like I'll watch a montage of Douglas Fairbanks doing some of his stuff, or Buster Keaton doing some of his stuff,
Yeah.
and it's like wow, that's some of the most impressive stuff I've ever seen. This was something that was happening in the 1920s, but like what I like watching is them pulling off this really impressive thing that I know is very difficult to do.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think that you just apply that same concept to modern day, and it's like
Yeah.
if I'm watching a
You.
movie, it's like, wow, look at what they did. You know, that's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah. You wouldn't find it as impressive if you knew someone was in front of a green screen and they're just jumping, and then they just have them, the
Yeah,
background scroll
yeah.
past them. Yeah.
Well, I don't know if there's any point that you wanted to make beyond that. Um,
I think that's about it. Just that, I think the planning process isn't as intense when you go digital as opposed to film, and you're not as the purpose of the shot is maybe different if you
yeah,
can
like,
take a shot from 15 different angles.
yeah, like it
When
becomes
why do you
secondary.
Yeah, you should only take you should only have one shot. That should be your shot.
Yeah, ideally.
Yeah.
Or at least an idea of like what, you know, like there's an intention behind your shot. There's an intention behind why you're shooting it the way that you're shooting it. Um, and if you're like, I'll figure it out later, then it's like, all right, well, all you have now is coverage. You don't really have any purpose behind the shot. Um, so yeah, I don't know. But I do think those were some good pages. So until next time, I'll see you later, brother.
Brother.